about our mission. This is a small group, which I'm ecstatic about because we can do this pretty easily. I'll say something and you'll ask me a question, and I'll say something and you'll ask me a question, and before you know it, you will have paid for your meal today by listening to me. It'll be great. I do know that Josh Starks, former commander, had spoke to your group before. He was in his new Army service uniform, the one that looks like a World War II one, maybe a couple years ago. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He's still at the post. In fact, Josh is the commander of the parade. So not necessarily important to everybody in this room, but the VFW does not run the Veterans Day Parade. We are an entity that participates in it. And as Josh is a former commander, you know, I have some sway into his OODA loop. But it's not the Tulsa VFW Veterans Day Parade, it's the Tulsa Veterans Day Parade. And we have organizations across Green Country that come to the parade, other posts, American Legion, DAV. A lot of what we're excited about is corporate groups will have their little veterans group, like, I'm in my mind, on North. Whirlpool. Whirlpool's example has their union, and they have a military section in there, and they'll be in the parade. The parade, I'm sure Josh went a little bit over the parade. It's the 5th largest free parade in the United States. When I mean free, my example for Whirlpool, it doesn't cost anything to be in the parade. There's no $300 application fee and nothing like that. So we're very excited about the parade, and I'll move on from that in a minute. A lot of people ask me, hey Dan, why don't you have it on Saturday?
Because
I'm
it's
like,
not Veterans Day.
Bingo.
and they're like, well, hey Dan, why don't you have it on Sunday, because that is Veterans Day? Not this year.
Not this year.
No, but the 100th anniversary of the Armistice Day was on a Sunday. Well, we had it on Monday. So like, you're killing us. I'm like, I'm not. Tulsa Public Schools will allow their students, groups, junior ROTCs, band. Booker T's my favorite place to go hang out with them because they're next to my row of vehicles. And so we have our parade on the federal holiday so the schools can participate. Smaller cities, Claremore, have it on Saturday. That's better for them because it's Saturday. It doesn't work for us in Tulsa. All the parochial schools, they'll come on Friday or Monday or Tuesday, whenever it is, because they'll just bring the kids. So if you ever wondered why it's always it's going to be always during the day of the week, either on the actual or the Monday or Friday. So enough about the parade. Got my notes that I just thought up while I was sitting there, which is normally what I do, so you have to bear with me a little bit. I did grow up in Tahlequah, kindergarten through college, as I like to say. My father was he got his PhD or his EED in Arkansas and moved to Tahlequah, so it's a great place to grow up. I joined the ROTC there, got commissioned as a cavalry / armor officer, had some really quality sergeants, NCOs that encouraged me to go to Korea as my first tour on the DMZ, and it really shaped my career to see what sort of a war was like. They blew the sirens, we ran out to our die-in place bunkers. So if you don't know why Americans are in Korea, anybody want to venture a guess? Someone? Sir, why are Americans in Korea?
Because we got North Korea and South Korea, and they want, you see everything going on in North Korea right now.
Right.
It hasn't changed in how many years?
Right. So the redneck in me will boil it down to Americans in Korea because North Koreans will have to kill Americans if they want to come to South Korea. That's the real story. We're not there for peacekeeping, we're not there for whatever. Man, I should have bought stock in Korea a long time ago, right? Samsung and Hyundai would all be better off. But Americans are along the DMZ because if there's ever aggression, then they have to shoot at Americans, and then that's what they get after that.
It's deterrence.
It is a huge deterrence, but we all knew what our job was to go to this side of the mountain and fight bravely until we couldn't, and then other people would come to us. That was a great tour. Desert Storm was crazy because, you know, it was we hadn't been in a conflict in forever. I got my letter, I volunteered, I got out of the Army and came to Tulsa, got my letter in the mail, and I remember reading it kind of like you had your mom read your orders. It said, you are to report to Fort Benning with further duty in Southwest Asia. I'm like, Southwest Asia, Southwest? I know what Southeast is, because that's Vietnam, I grew up, you know. Southwest Asia, South, oh crap, I'm going to Iraq, yeah. So that's pretty interesting. I always like to talk about Bosnia a little bit. It's pretty much one of my more depressing and agonizing places to be. I want to categorize Bosnia, if you hadn't heard anybody talk about it, as a three-way pool game. Any pool players in here? One, great. Well, you'll understand. Everybody else can ask you later. You had Bosniaks versus Serbs versus Croatians versus Bosniaks versus Serbs versus Croatians. Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Serbia were all part of the former Yugoslavia, and all three of them fought each other. So it was a very asymmetric war. There wasn't two people fighting, there were three people fighting. Because the Croatians would kill Serbians just if they were in their way, and vice versa. Unfortunately about the Croatians, they purged their country to about 98%, getting rid of any Muslims, and so that's why they sued for peace, because they were done. A lot of mass graves, a lot of, and I don't know why. I mean, I understand people's thoughts. They just left their buildings with holes in them. If it was a mosque, they would leave it unfixed. If it was a church, they would leave it unfixed. And anyway, it was a very disturbing place to see how people could descend into what was just a real feudal, you know, violent type of deal. I was fortunate enough to do war criminal hunting, so we flew around and I hung out with the Italian Carabinieri, and we did war criminal stuff on Carotid and Mladic. You heard those names? I went to Karadic's mother's wake to find him, pointing guns at people. We were not popular at the wake, but had to be done. And then I volunteered to go to Iraq with the Oklahoma Guard, and then I ended up working for Sticky. Just didn't mean anything to you guys. It's the multi-security force training, whatever. Because I was a cop in Tulsa, I found myself doing a lot of blue to green, interpreting police to military and military to police. And when I was in Katrina, they would say, hey Dan, send your guys, you just got back from Afghanistan, over to Chapatoulas and Felicity. It's a real intersection in New Orleans.
It is. I know where it is.
It's by the Walmart. Okay, so you know where Chapatoulas and Felicity is. And they're like, no one gets by. Like, I mean, like none shall pass. They're like, yeah. I'm like, you can't tell my people that, because they will shoot them. Well, I mean, that's why we had a lot of blue versus green, kind of like words had meaning in the Army that may not be the same as the deputy sheriff from Backwater, Louisiana. So that was a very interesting part of my deal. Ended up going to Iraq, ended up running a camp called Camp Dublin, where we trained Iraqi forces to go to Sadr City with special operations groups and do warranted arrest, which was a new concept. We tried to have the rule of law in Iraq, like they would make a case and then go arrest somebody. than just killing them. I was fortunate enough, I went the 82nd to Afghanistan and still kind of did that job with FBI and some other people. We did investigations to corrupt Afghani officials, which I would like to say was all of them. I'm sure there was one that wasn't corrupt. Anyway, we did great work over there. Also did a lot of rule of law, where we did Department of Justice will do things one way, because that's their parameters, and the Department of Defense will do things the other way. So we did a lot of this. Department of Justice, we can't do that. Well, DOD can do it. Or DOD can't really do this, but Department of Justice can do that. So it was another convoluted, crazy place I never thought I would end up at. So that's just a little dip on where I came from to end up here. The VFW in Tulsa, I've been there for 21 years. I'm very proud of the VFW. It's not my VFW, even though I say it's my post sometimes. The Tulsa VFW, 577, firm grasp the obvious, 3 digits. Well, because there's 3, there's not 2, 4. So the VFW does not recycle numbers. So Tulsa, Oklahoma was the 577th VFW nationwide. Okay? And if you're a 3-digit post, you're 100 years old. So the Tulsa VFW came into existence in 1920. So we got our 103-year anniversary coming up. In fact, the Tulsa VFW, along with Muskogee 494, we were actually a post before the state department was organized. So we're older than our headquarters, because you had to have 5 posts in good standing to have a department to have all your stuff. So we are a founding member of the Tulsa the VFW in Oklahoma. The building, I know we talked about a little bit, which is very exciting. I say the post is the building and the building is the post. And we've had people say, hey, we should just sell it and just have our meetings, I don't know, at Baxter's. Like, well, we're not as long as I'm there. So, but it's hard to keep it up. The building was built in 1917. It was a National Guard armory. So the building's 105 years old. So I invite everybody to come down there and have a little piece of history and walk through. The building's open to the public. The bar's open to the public. We'll rent to anybody that's not, I don't know what word to use, subversive to the United States. So come down there. The building was involved in the race riot massacre. It was a field hospital for everyone, and then it turned into a morgue. So Tulsa Spirit Haunted Tours come by there.
Oh, interesting.
If you're into that, then I'll give you the private ghost tour.
Oh, fun.
And and then anybody wants to have a sidebar about the riot massacre, about the National Guard involvement, I would talk to you ad nauseum about that.
I have a
Yes,
question about.
yes, ma'am. Great.
I have a
First
question about the building. What funds, or how do you get funds to maintain the building?
Well, I'm going to skip to where it says right here.
No, just kidding.
Great. No, I'll go back. Well, I'll run out of room. Okay, so this is not an ask, if you're familiar with that, right? I'm not asking, I'm saying. The VFW in Tulsa, Oklahoma receives $0 from the United States government. We don't get a 10 grand check once a quarter. We don't get a per capita, you've got so many members, we're gonna give you $1. The VFW gets $0 from the federal government. And neither is the Legion or the DAV and on and on.
Any VFW? Or
Zero
okay, any
VFWs
okay.
get,
Zero.
there's no federal funds from the United States government that goes to any VFW, period.
Why?
In the,
Yeah.
Is there
That's
a reason?
weird. Why is that?
because we're a fraternal organization with a congressional charter. Like, we're patriotic Moose Lodge people. Or, I'm trying to make my point is that we're just a fraternal organization.
Like the police,
Well, or just, we're, you know, we're
social club?
we're a
No,
congressional,
it's-
yeah, we'll go on what we do, like Americanism. But the United States government doesn't fund the VFW, because we made up the VFW. 102 years ago, there wasn't. And so you'll get where I'm going with this, and we get how many dollars from the state of Oklahoma?
Zero.
$0 from the state of Oklahoma. The city in which we dwell, $0 from the city of Tulsa. Zero. Go back to my previous 105-year-old building, I don't know how many square feet it is, I don't know, 7,000 or something crazy like that. So if we don't do the things that we do, I don't mind skipping because I enjoy the question. If we don't rent our hall, if you don't buy a beer in my bar, we call it a lounge or whatever, it's a bar. It's open to the public, which means it's open to the public. Not that you have to know Dan to come down there. You just come down there and have a good craft beer.
And put it on your tab?
Sure. Decorum won't allow me to say what I normally tell people when they order their beer, so they know it's me. I'll tell you the secret password later. If you don't rent our hall, you don't eat breakfast, we have breakfast on Saturdays, we have lunch on Wednesday, Thursdays. We don't do it every day because then that puts us in the restaurant business, and the restaurant business puts us in a tax thing, puts us in a whatever thing. So we do it 2 days a week plus breakfast.
And catering.
And what?
Yeah, catering
Yeah,
too.
we'll cater. Debbie used to own Debbie's Diner downtown by the Blue Dome. She's our cook. She's awesome. You ever heard of Debbie's Diner? Route 66 Diner by the Blue Dome?
66 Diner.
That's her. So we're glad to have her. So anyway, that's the, most everybody's been by the building at least once, right? You saw that cool neon sign up front, red, white, blue? That's the best part of my building. It's also the worst part of my building because people just drive by it. They assume they can't come in there unless they've got their Purple Heart tattooed on their chest. But it's open to the public. We invite you to come down there. You're always welcome. Just walk through it and we'd be glad to have you. So we talked about how old it was. Talked about that. The VFW in Tulsa took over the building from the National Guard in 1947 at the exorbitant amount of, anybody want to guess? $1 bill. You're very close. You're close.
It'd be 20 today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
20 is an
inflation would be 20 today. So we have the building and we say we own the building. I think we do. Jack Nafee's one of our old guys, is a lawyer, icon in Tulsa, has passed several years ago. But it says as long as we keep the building for use of military benefit to veterans, then we can have the building. So we could not be the VFW, but then state VFW is gonna say they own the building. Anyway, Bruce never gonna get rid of our building. And we got it in 1947. So the side to the west, we call that the new side or the lady side, even though it's not PC. That's where the auxiliary rested for a long time. And, but the original two-story building was the armory. So you guys should come down there. We've got a deck outside, so we're a no smoking bar. So you smoke a cigarette, go out on the deck, but you don't smell like as I say, a box of Reds for coming through my bar for a minute. So generally what I get is, well, I'm gonna go back. Our membership, when I joined, was about 1,000 people. Membership today is 534. So we are pushing to have members all the time. Why is that important to us, you? There are two organizations that go to the Hill and get to speak to Congress. They are the VFW and the American Legion. Because we have 1.5 million members with our auxiliary. We're less than 1 million on our membership. That's why we're doing membership drives all the time. So as long as we have close to 1 million membership organization, we singly get to address Congress. the DAV and the Veterans Group, or the Vietnam Veterans Group, and all the other fine service organizations, they kind of speak as a group to Congress. But VFW gets our own little 15 minutes of fame. So what does the VFW do? It's mostly defined as Americanism, which is very clear what that is. So, Americanism for us in Tulsa is we recognize Veterans Day, Memorial Day. Memorial Day, we have 450 sets of boots in the newly named Veterans Park. It's no longer Centennial Park. We did a renaming. Josh Starks was the guy who led that. Each boot has a picture or a name of an Oklahoma soldier, sailor, airman, Marine that was killed in combat. So it's a very somber boot display. I'll encourage you, we run it 24/7. We have lights, you can come by anytime. And the Gold Star families of Green Country, which is kind of an amalgamation of Gold Star families in the Tulsa area, run it, and the VFW supports it. For 9/11 on the 20th anniversary, we had a big ceremony, had Lieutenant Governor Hearn,
Pinnell,
yeah, pardon?
Mike Pinnell.
Yeah, and others. We're at the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Veterans Day is a big day for us. We obviously, when we had the 100th year anniversary of Armistice Day, you know, that's a big deal for us. We do Flag Day. I'll encourage you to all go out and tell your friends, families, and neighbors, we will take your flag. If you want to fold it or just put it in a bag and bring it down to us, we will take it. And then on Flag Day, we have probably 4 scout troops that will retire the flags. Behind our facility, you probably wouldn't see it, Max Tankersley donated some land. We have the only permanent flag retirement burn pit thing in Oklahoma that we can guess. I mean, I don't know of any dedicated flag retirement burn pit thing in Oklahoma.
I was wondering what that
Scouts do
was.
it. The Scouts,
But his is permanent.
No, I mean, we have a whole different lot behind our deal that's got a flag and the burn pit and
Is
a
that the
little
one,
memorial thing
is that the
on it.
one kitty corner from the,
Yeah.
yeah.
From the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't do, we have thousands, not tens of thousands, but thousands of flags that we burn on that day.
I wondered what that place was.
So we'll take them all year round. One of those scouts, we support scouting. We have coming up with my membership dinner in February. We do a Fireman of the Year, Tulsa Metro. We do a Policeman of the Year, Tulsa Metro. 2 years ago, I had Zark, who was wounded when Sergeant Johnson was killed. He was our guest cop of the year. We do Teacher of the Year. We recognize teachers that promote patriotism and good work inside their school. And I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Scout, fireman, teacher, police. So we have those programs. Other programs that we do, it's called Patriot Pen. So if you're in junior high and you do a short essay, then we'll judge it. And if you win my post level, I won't bore you with all that. There are posts and there are districts. I'm also the district commander, which gives me nothing but a migraine. And it takes the 10 Tulsa Metro posts, Glenpool, Manford, Owasso, Broken Arrow. It's just basically it's administrative level. But we will judge the Patriot Pen and then we send it to the Department, State of Oklahoma. And then the winner could get $1,500 or whatever. We also have a Voice of Democracy, which we have high school students read their speech, what America means to me today, or what veteran, there's a slight variant of the topic every year, and we judge those, and it goes through post, district, state. The auxiliary, this is where I need some help on, because those programs have expired this month. We've turned them in. The auxiliary has an artist program. So a guy from Edison won the state and went to national and got 5th place in the nation for doing his artwork. So if you have any artists, I will get you the form. There's 2 levels of that too. There's a junior high and high school version. Yes, sir.
Are there any VA caseworkers still working down there, like Miles did, kind of? You know, I mean, like
Yes.
like
Right, that's a good question.
Yes.
looking over. Who do you got working there?
Yes, good. Let's get to that
Paperwork and
part.
stuff like that. That's a really good question.
So we have what we call service officers. And I don't want to bore you with a lot of the detail, but we probably bring $1.2 million to Tulsa Metro every year from our office in benefits to soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. So to be as brief as I can, it doesn't require combat service to rate some sort of disability. So if you did 4 years, my buddy's kind of an example of that. We were in Korea together, but he went to the 82nd. West Point graduate, broke his back. He can't be in the Army anymore. So he got a disability, non-combat related. So it didn't have to be a Purple Heart thing. You can fall out of a deuce and a half, you can be involved in a wreck of a Humvee or something. And remind me to talk about the PACT Act before I finish, if I don't remember it. So we have a service officer that will triage anybody who's a veteran. You don't have to be a member of the post. Again, I'm open to the public. It doesn't have to be combat related. You just have to have served in some capacity. We'll come down there. I have 2 accredited officers, and what that means is they have the passwords and they can see the big computer in the VA sky and do your claim, as I call it, flash to bang. Most posts don't have accredited officers there. So I have 2 outreach, Oklahoma ODVA and the VA, plus my own, Vic St. Clair wasn't accredited, but he moved on, so he's not accredited with our post anymore. So it's millions of dollars that we and all the other service organizations working with a veteran to get their disability claim. So if you're a maxed out disability, I'll just run it off, it's $40,000 a year. Okay, so times thousands of people who live in Tulsa that we've done claims. We probably did, I don't know, we do more than a day, so it's something like 400 claims a year. Not everybody qualifies, not everybody maxes out, not everybody does whatever, but for over years, that's what happens. So if you know anybody, yes, sir.
Do you do any work with the homeless population at all, or veteran homeless? With the VA or with the VFW? Just curious. I work for the day center.
I hear you.
Just curious.
I'd like to talk to you after this.
Need a smoking
So, yes, if they are a veteran, then I have a relief fund, and I will give them money. $50 to get back on the bus or whatever. The post doesn't really have any homeless programs other than for veterans.
Right.
Because of our proximity to downtown, that's just something we've not done. While those people are struggling, we can't afford to have that be one of those.
We have a
places.
case manager that works with veterans.
Right.
But I'm not honestly 100% sure the level that we do.
Right. If they are a veteran, and
I'm not sure.
veteran's kind of a loose term. It used to be that you were a combat, or you had a service medal. Anybody who served in the military is a veteran to us as far as claims. So we'll have a sidebar to this, be great. Did that answer your question? Are we done on questions?
PACT Act.
PACT Act. So with the VFW, everybody knows Stewart, comedian. What's his first name?
John Stewart.
John Stewart spoke to us on Zoom at the VFW National Convention. He's a very big supporter of veterans. We got the PACT Act passed. What that is, bottom line up front, is it's a burn pit act. So, it goes all the way back to Vietnam or anywhere else that most everybody's heard that Agent Orange causes cancer, and any cancer is a presumptive diagnosis. Like, you don't have to prove that your liver cancer was somehow related to your military service, because we're saying it is if you were in Vietnam. You don't have to prove it. The PACT Act expanded that to Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, wherever, brown water Navy, blue water Navy, all that stuff. So now there are so many more presumptives. When I was in Bagram, my nose would burn, just as we burned whatever we burned. In Iraq, it's just, the dust over there is like talc. It's not sand, it's like baby powder. It just gets everywhere. And Desert Storm, of course, one of the days when they set all the oils on fire, it was just dark at noon. It's like apocalyptic orange balls sometimes you could see. Anyway, so PACT Act guarantees people presumptive diagnosis. There's another act that we haven't passed yet, we're working on. If you were medically retired from the military after 10 years, the military says thank you. And kicks you to the curb. And then you file for disability. But you lost that 10 years. So I can't remember the major's name. I apologize. I meant to look that up on my phone before I got up here. So we're working on an act that will give you, that soldier, a retirement based on what his years were, and if he was medicaled out, he would get concurrent payment. You would get a military retirement and a disability if you qualify for it. Instead of just saying, thanks for your 10 years of service, and we're out. Is that about it?
Anything else?
I'm gonna close, and I appreciate you putting up with me. I always feel like I go long on some of these. Pretty much talked about everything except the question I get most, the difference between the American Legion and the VFW. It's not a competition, but we also are in the same backyard looking for the same resources. The American Legion requirement to be a Legionnaire is that you served in the military. That's why there's about 2 million of them. And they do great work. I played Legion ball when I was a kid. Glad to have them. For the VFW, you would have to receive what we call a service or campaign medal. So you would have to have gone Vietnam service, Southwest Asia service, Armed Forces Expeditionary, Afghan service medal, Iraq service medal. So it's harder. Our group is smaller to recruit from because they have to have had foreign service.
There's specific criteria for dates.
Yes. And so the last thing I'll leave you with is why they formed the VFW is another lieutenant cavalry officer, lieutenant colonel cavalry officer, Theodore Roosevelt, you heard of him, went up San Juan Hill for the Spanish-American War in Cuba. And there's some other, the Philippine insurrection. Those gentlemen, and some ladies, came back and they tried to join all the town veterans halls during the Civil War. And the Civil War guys, the truth be known, said, no, you're not part of us. We don't want you hanging around because you weren't in the Great Civil War. See, it was great. That was their attitude, right? Like, you weren't in the Civil War, so I don't really care what you did. You can't be a part of the Union soldiers of something, Massachusetts. So they, the Cuban and Philippine soldiers, invented the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, in 1899, and that's where the VFW came from. So that's your last little take-home test question. Appreciate you putting up with me.
Listen. Dan, token of our appreciation, we'd like you to present you with
Awesome.
the Rotarian Flavors of the World Cookbook. I
will
will
use
vouch
it.
for the VFW. I have rented their hall. I have tapped the lady that does the cooking
Debbie.
to
Debbie.
do our catering for the
Right.
thing for our function that we had. A couple of them actually. I had one in the Centennial Lounge.
Yep.
And they do just terrific work. But if we could get a little, how shall I say this, selection in the fair. Here's some ideas.
Okay. No, we'll cook it and sell it. We're always looking for an angle. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming today.
And it was a successful day for me, not just because I got to meet